Like for that person that's watching, for that person that's struggling in their finances, they're living paycheck to paycheck, and they just feel trapped. What would you say to that person?
A couple years ago, even a couple months ago, I would say you need to build a financial foundation. You need to know your numbers. So today my answer would be to...
An expert here, the finance geek, Denzel Rodriguez. Brother, good to see you.
Pleasure.
So good to have you here. And man, before we get started, I got to tell people the story on how we reconnected, right? So a couple of years ago, I am sitting, it's early in the morning, and I'm going through some videos, and I find this guy who's speaking about wealth, but he's doing it from a biblical perspective. And I think the first thing that shocked me and got my attention is that I do that with fitness, but I had never seen anyone do it with finance. And I was like, man, this is awesome. And it was about infinity banking thing. You actually recommended a book in that video. It was this book on infinite banking. I got the book. I devoured it. I got some things from it. The interesting thing is we never connected. And then fast forward a couple years later, I'm at the ClickFunnels event. First day, I show up, and I had a little strategy there to get to the front. And this guy comes right beside me, and he's like, is anyone sitting here? So I'm like, no. And we shake hands and we start, kind of small talk. Long story short, I ask Denzel what he does. He tells me he's in finance. He's pretty invested in YouTube. I'm like, oh, cool, me too. And I said, man, I used to follow this finance guy, Spanish guy, and he was talking about infinite banking, and you kind of looked at me. You said, really? You said, yeah. I know that. I know that industry. That's kind of my realm. And so you show me the guy. So I remember I went into my YouTube and I started searching for the video. Finally, I pull it up and you go, that's me. And I was like, oh my God, it was crazy. Yeah. I mean, there were,
to your defense, the Funnel Hackers Live, and maybe a little dark in there.
Yeah.
It was lights, there's a lot going on. So
yeah. And you look different from the video. and so, but man, what are the chances of that? Right. And so now, of course, as people of faith, we're thinking man, is there a reason for this? Is there a reason for this connection? There's almost 3,000 plus people in there. And I bump into this guy that at one point I was trying to find. And, we hit it off from the start. We have some things in common. He's half Colombian, half Puerto Rican. I'm Colombian. And so, yeah, we just kind of went back and forth. And we said, man, we got to do this. We got to sit and talk about these two concepts that are those pillars, right? Which are of course faithful, which is the faith component. Being fit, right? Being physically fit, but then also being wealthy. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. And man, tell our people out here who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So my takeaway for those that are business owners, those that are trying to build a business, it's very important to follow up with your leads because there's money on the table. And clearly I missed out on a great potential client, great potential, business partner that could have occurred years before. But the reality is maybe at that point in time, either I wasn't ready, I didn't have the systems in place, right, to handle that kind of lead flow. Because I could tell you the video that he saw me in, that video was one of the videos that went viral. And that was on someone else's channel. It was on Wealth Nation. So shout out to them. Mm-hmm. And the fact that so many years later, God aligns certain people at the right timing. So another takeaway is in due time is how I've been building my business in due time. As I begin to build the skills, build the disciplines, build the certain strengths that God can ordain a divine meeting. And that was one of our huge takeaways, was really figuring out, wait, how did this just happen? Right. And I was like, and I had to find out if you were a man of God. So I don't know how I asked, but usually people of faith tend to reveal themselves.
Sure.
Just here are my cards. I'm a man of God. I'm a woman of God. Here's what it is. And that usually helps. I'm like, okay, that's pretty much why that happened. So I am,
awesome.
I'm 27 years old, entrepreneur. I started my journey almost 10 years ago, 2014, I graduate high school. I start selling kitchen cutlery knives through a company called Vector Marketing. Also, the product is called Cutco. So many of you will probably know that brand, Cutco, best knives in the world. They have one of the best training systems, and that helped me develop communication skills, follow-up skills, getting referrals, lead, answering phones, making cold calls, booking appointments. Little did I know I was building a business then. At that point, I was just trying to make some money.
Marketing one-on-one.
Right. So from 2014 all the way to 2018, I bounced in and out of network marketing positions, sales positions, and I had a food and beverage job, almost a career, could have been a career. Did about 2.5 years there, and I got fired in June of 2018. Months prior to getting fired, I started making videos. I started just recording myself going to work and from work. And I was just talking about, here's what I'm learning about. I just found this concept called infinite banking. I just discovered this concept called velocity banking. I discovered how to leverage debt, how to build credit, how to pay off debt faster, how to invest. I'm just like sharing what I'm learning and what I'm reading about. In combination, I'm also learning about faith. I was just very curious. I got exposed to a guy named Miles Monroe, and he was talking about kingdom. I became obsessed with what it is to be a king. I was like, I want to be a king. Sure, who doesn't want to be a king? Right. I was like, I like that. These concepts were gravitating to me, and that was just God orchestrating certain people to come into my life in the areas of faith, health, and wealth. Just kind of combining them all together. From 2018 till now, it's December of 2023, and I've made probably 1,000 videos at this point on YouTube. Over 50,000 subscribers, over 4.5 million views, 20 plus million impressions. There's all the analytics to show that I'm doing something right. And I'm giving all the glory to God. And in doing that, I'm being blessed beyond measure. I'm sitting in rooms like right now where it just reminds me, I'm just like, well, I think I made it. You guys have to see the inside of this studio. It's like the prettiest studio I've been in so far.
Thank you, brother.
Collaborating with other folks. Most of my collaborations are virtual. Not too many of them are in person. Because mind you, my YouTube career really started 2 years before COVID. And when COVID started, my YouTube channel really blew up.
Right.
Like I nearly doubled.
Yeah.
Everybody and their mama was trying to learn about finance.
For sure.
So I had all these topics, all these videos that were just archived about how to pay off debt faster, how to leverage credit, how to do these things that people were now searching for at a high magnitude. And here we are. I'm just so blessed.
So that video that I saw resonated so much with me that I can't tell you specifically what concept or what you said in that video. But I will say that back then when I saw the video, we were still in some kind of debt, right? We still had debt. And I applied those principles, and to God's glory, today we are debt-free, completely debt-free. And I attribute a lot of the things that were said in that video to being debt-free, right? It was just, it just made sense. The message came in at the right time, and I just, I'm a systems guy, so I was like, okay, I can add this to my systems, and so I haven't shared that with you, but
no, you haven't. That's really cool, and it's crazy that there's so many people that watch my channel that never reach out, right?
Right.
And then I'll bump into them at an airport or at an event, at a workshop, and they're like, dude, you changed my life. I'm like, how?
Yeah, how?
Because it still blows my mind that people watch my videos.
Right.
That people are genuinely watching the videos, not just being entertained or, oh, cool concept, or okay, that's great, I'll try that. No, these people are like taking hours upon hours upon hours out of their day, out of their Sundays or Saturdays. They're sitting with their wives, they're sitting with their husbands, sitting with their kids, and they're making it a tradition to watch these 50+ plus 40 plus minute long videos.
Yeah.
Where I lay out the entire system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very logical, straight to the point. I'm not so high on the emotional.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of a logical person. I do have emotion, and that'll come out in certain situations where it makes sense. But it's the systems that people that already have some level of discipline, like yourself, going into it, I'd be like, oh,
I get it. Yeah.
this is me.
Yeah. What's interesting is the things that you said weren't necessarily foreign, but I think that it was the foundational stuff that you were talking about, and it was the faith component that just made a lot of sense to me, because a lot of these finance concepts are they're out there, and the secular world knows them, talks about them, but it was more because I often believe, and I say this even in my realm of fitness and nutrition, it's not the how that people come for, right? It's how do I actually implement this? How do the want versus the how, right? And I say when it comes to weight loss, I'm like, most people know how, they just don't have the want, right? And I think oftentimes that happens with money as well, where we know how to get debt free. I mean, we truly know how to do it. It's kind of a simplistic concept, but actually doing it is the hard part. And I think that when it's backed up by things that resonate with you intrinsically, it's a lot easier to do. And that's exactly what happened to me after that video. And I systematically started to incorporate those things. I also think that, there are so many correlations between health and wealth. In other words, when we read the Bible, we hear that, Christ came to give us life and life abundantly. And so when we look at that word abundantly and we hear the word life, right, we have to expositionally kind of break up what those words mean. And so when we look at the word life, we're talking about this side of eternity, right? So yeah, sure, there is this promise of being in the presence of a sovereign God in this other side of life, but that there is life here, and that when he comes to us, he gives us life abundantly. There are other scriptures that say that our cup will overflow. He says, my sons and daughters will not beg for bread, right? Which talks about that provision. So I love that, because when you're, so we know that those claims, that those truths are for us, and they're for this side of eternity. And the same thing goes for health. If you're battling with your health, right, there is a promise for his sons and daughters that you can overcome that through self-control and all these other things. And so there's a lot of parallels between health, wealth, and I really want to break this down tangibly, because I guess I'll ask you the question, and this is a question that people ask me all the time, like, hey, what are the 3 things I need to do if I want to get in shape? There's so much noise out there. Yeah. Right. There's all these different programs, the keto, the Atkins, the macro counting, calorie counting. Like, what is the thing that is actually going to give me a sustainable lifestyle around food? And so I ask you the question, like, for that person that's watching, for that person that's struggling in their finances, they're living paycheck to paycheck, and they just feel trapped. What would you say to that person?
Couple years ago, even a couple months ago, I would say, you need to build a financial foundation. You need to know your numbers. This is something I preach on my channel all day long. It's like, first we need to know your numbers before we even set goals or anything. Like, we just need to know where you're at, right? So identify where you're at. Okay, this is the answer that I would give months ago, maybe even weeks ago.
Yeah.
And what I've been saying for years. You need to know your numbers, you need to build a foundation, right? Then from there, I talk about how we can start to save money first. So many people want to make money. They want to chase money, even believers, even Christians.
Sure.
Right? And they won't admit this.
Right.
But it's like, dude, you're chasing ROI and not
impact.
Purpose.
Yeah.
Impact.
Yeah.
It's like in your action. Yes. In your words, in your faith, in your scripture. Sure. But in your action, you're actually chasing ROI because you're trying to start that e-commerce store that you have absolutely no skills in, or you're trying to start this network marketing MLM company, or you're trying to, do this YouTube thing, or do this thing, or do that thing. Right.
So let's dissect that. So point number 1 is know your numbers.
Know your numbers.
Point number 2 is understand why you're doing what you're doing. Right.
Build a foundation. Right?
Okay. And then point number 3,
start saving money.
Start saving money. Okay.
Because I can argue that your ability to save $1 versus generate $1, you're going to net a lesser dollar when you make the dollar, because you have to factor in inflation, taxes, and fees that come from generating that dollar, versus saving $1 first, holding on to it, preserving it, and then deploying it could arguably generate you more money in the long run. And it just gives you that discipline.
Gotcha.
This is a very logical answer. Can I give you the emotional one?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, because what I want to do is I actually want to pinpoint those 3 pillars, right? And then what I would like to do is I would like to correlate them with what I do, because as I hear you, I'm like, okay, this makes perfect sense. This is the sequence also of how to get healthy. Right? So this is where the correlation is. And of course so the emotional side, what's the emotional side of that?
So the emotional side is something that I really would like to share, because this is something I haven't spent a whole lot of time in. But I'm now realizing how valuable it is to have emotion attached to your logical brain, the logical side, and that will give you the drive to actually do what I'm saying. So what I've realized, being a financial coach, consultant, strategist, insurance agent, ecclesiastical financial counselor, helping people with their finances, I've got this group of people that I can split into, like 50% are logical and the other 50 are emotional. And the emotional clients that I have do not generate the results nearly as much as my logical ones. And the reason for that is because I haven't figured out a way to communicate to them the same strategy. It's not like I'm giving them a different strategy. I just need to communicate it differently. So I've been reading a book, or actually listening to a book called Choose Your Enemies Wisely by Patrick Bet-David. It just dropped literally like a day ago.
Yeah.
I've been listening to the audio. But mind you, I've been binge watching all of his interviews that are promoting the book, so I pretty much know what the book's going to be about.
Right.
Because I've just been diving so deep into it.
Yeah.
And I decided to figure out who my enemy is. So I would say, whether it's to build your faith, to build your wealth, to build your finances, let's just focus on wealth for right now. Who's your enemy? It doesn't necessarily have to be a person, but it is a concept. It's a story. It's a lie. It's a false doctrine that you've told yourself or people told about you. My enemy is injustice and need for approval. I have a father that went to prison and was proven innocent after 10 years. That develops a strong enemy.
Sure.
Right? Why did they take my father from me? Boom. I go there emotionally. This led to living in a single mom household, poor, paycheck to paycheck, lack of education, lack of fatherhood, lack of, authority in the household, all this stuff. Then it was need for approval. Because I didn't have a father figure in the household, and this isn't discrediting my mother. My mother is the nurturer and has no place to provide both roles of authority and nurture, of fatherhood and motherhood. Like, it's just impossible for a mom to do both, right? So when you lack those things, that developed a need for approval. So when it came to developing myself in finance and communication with people, I've had this insecurity that I am less, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I didn't go to college, I don't have the degrees, I don't have the skills, I'm not good at reading, I'm poor at comprehending stuff. So I had to study.
You're poor at comprehending stuff.
Right, yeah. My comprehension skills when it comes to reading, right? Specifically when it comes to reading, just very low. So these are the lies I've told myself since 5-6 years old.
Yeah.
Right, all the way till, into my 20s. So today my answer would be to find your faith, find out who your enemy is. And you'd be surprised that there's the positive side of finding your faith, right? And the hope. But there's also that enemy that is driving you.
Yeah.
And when I was able to go there personally, and I was like, this is why I'm so logical. This is why I do what I do. This is why I'm so maniacal when it comes to working with clients and giving them all the facts, all the calculations, all the scenarios, running the numbers down to the penny.
Yeah.
Because I have this enemy.
Yeah. That's so interesting, man.
So that's my answer today, right? Choose your enemies wisely.
Yeah.
Find out who that is.
Yeah.
Now let's go build the strategy, which is your foundation.
Yep.
And I would still keep it the same. Let's learn how to save money. Let's learn how to hold, preserve, and prepare to deploy, right? Because you save money to invest or you save money to spend. And I learned something from Caleb Gillums from Better Wealth. He says money can only be used two different ways. Money can only be saved or spent. That's the only two things you can do with money.
That's
you're either saving to invest or you're saving to pay for a future expense.
Yeah, that's really good, man. So before we get onto those three pillars, the initial pillars, I want to speak to that, what you just said about the emotional side. And I love what you said, because this has been a theme that I've been speaking to my audience for a while now. We actually we're releasing a video shortly here about the stories we tell ourselves, which is choose your enemy, right? Just right up that alley. And I think that that's so important, because one of the things that I often say is that whether our behaviors are good or bad, they're based on a story we're telling ourselves, right? And so we are an accumulation, a cluster of stories. And those stories are either positive or negative. If they're negative, you're having negative outcomes in your life, because in terms of health, it's either, well, my mom and my dad were obese, therefore I am meant to be obese, and therefore your actions will follow based around that story, that enemy, right? Same thing comes for wealth. I hear this all the time. Man, I'm going to live paycheck to paycheck all my life because, that's all I know. I come from poverty. Like, why would I be any better? Right. And based on those stories, that's what you're living out. And so the importance of reframing those stories and actually telling yourself empowering stories that allow you to thrive is pivotal, right? And has a lot to do with your emotions. And I think it's important, because there's so many people that are anti-emotions, and they're like, you just have to disconnect from your emotions. Like, we're emotional human beings, right? Yeah. Whether we want to be or not, And so those three pillars, the first one is know your numbers. For us, that's where we start, right? But we know that that's not the end all do all, right? And so for us, it's like, okay, well, what are you weighing? Right? That's the starting point, because that's a diagnostic question that allows us to understand where we are and where we need to go. Same thing with finance. Like, hey, how much money do you have? How much money do you owe? Right? So that's the starting point. We need to know where those numbers are. We need to know what the scale says. We need to know what your P&L statement says.
Right? And it's so healthy to just start with where you are, especially from the coach's perspective, before I even give you any sort of guidance or strategy. Just becoming aware of where you're at is like the transformation in it of itself. Clarity. And it has nothing to do with me saying, hey, you're doing this poorly or you're doing this bad. It's just like, just tell me where you're at.
Yeah. Clarity is potential power, right? Action is power, but clarity is potential power. So knowing where you are. Number two is the
building the foundation.
Building the foundation. So in finance, that looks like different verticals, different pockets of where you're looking to invest, right? For us, our foundation, and that point number two is really creating an ecosystem, right? That's going to support the new habits, right? It's so we create visual cues. Visual cues are things that you see on a daily basis that remind you of what you need to do based on this new lifestyle. We talk about being careful with people, places, and things, because this is where most of the mishaps come, because people influence us, environments influence us. We talk about creating an environment at home that is going to support what you're now doing. So if there's garbage food in the house, get it out, right? You don't need that stuff.
I love how we're saying the same thing.
Exactly.
It's the same. I'm like, wait. He just said, I just said foundation. He just said ecosystem. What is a foundation? Like, a foundation is developing the environment. What is an environment? It's an ecosystem.
Right.
So hopefully you guys are like, wait, you just said the same thing. It's just the approach. So 15, 20 people that are watching just caught what you said, and then the other 35, 20 people just caught what I just said. So I'm really enjoying this.
Right. And so, you build that specific foundation so that you can thrive, because we often say that if you get rid of, and when I say rid, I say that tactfully, if you separate yourself from the wrong people for the time being while you get strong, whether it's healthy or putting money away, because maybe in finance, those people are leading you to spend more money. Maybe it's family, maybe it's friends. or you remove yourself from certain environments that make you spend more money or make you eat more or make you drink more, right? Then the third thing is those things. So people, places, things. I think oftentimes inside of the realm of food, food becomes a crutch, right? Food becomes an idol. It's the thing that we hang on to. It's the thing that alleviates the adversity, the pressure, the stress, right? We reach for food because that helps, that it gives us that dopamine hit. And I think when it comes to finance, that happens to people too. People are using credit cards, right, as an idol.
An idol called money.
An idol called credit cards. Isn't it crazy that the card that we've known for all this time is called MasterCard?
Yeah.
It's pretty scary when you hear that for many people, their credit cards is their master, right? And it's the thing that they lean into.
$1 trillion Americans are in debt on their credit cards today. And I'm like, God, am I doing any damage whatsoever? I've helped a lot of people get rid of their credit card debt.
Including myself, yeah.
And I'm just like,
yeah.
I'm like, but there's $1 trillion more to go.
Yeah, no. I mean, when you look at statistics of obesity, you know that the obesity rate actually went up 30% after COVID. So, I mean, we were already in trouble here in the United States with the obesity rates. And after COVID, it just, I mean, people that were 20, to give you an idea, a perspective, right? Because percentages are hard to measure or to make tangible. But that basically is the equivalent of a person weighing an extra 30 pounds on top of what they were already weighing after COVID, right?
Wow.
And so the problem was just, I mean, it was just amplified by COVID. And I think with people's stress, people were going nuts online buying things during COVID. I know,
and people losing their faith.
Oh, forget it. Yeah. It was just all over the place. And so those systematic things, so we have know where you are, know your numbers, create an environment, create an ecosystem that's going to support, right? And then number three,
save,
right? Save. Which calls for discipline,
especially in the beginning. We're just talking beginning. I'm not talking to an investor that's making multi-million dollars. That's, all about leverage. And I'm just talking to that average American, most people watching this video right now that are in the beginning stages. Yeah. You need to learn how to save.
So saving requires that discipline muscle.
The discipline muscle.
That thing that most people think, well, some people have a predisposition towards discipline and others don't. I disagree with that. I think discipline really talks about systems. Correct. And having systems in place, habits that allow you to be disciplined, because let's face it, none of us are disciplined. I truly believe that. And the reason I say that is because we are all more inclined towards the fleshly things, and the fleshly things are the lack of discipline and not wanting to get out of your safety zone and not wanting to be uncomfortable and doing what's easier, right? But discipline saving requires discipline, as the same thing goes for, keeping your health habits, eating well, staying away from certain things. So 3 areas that I think are important and that really correlate in this. And for people out there, because I think that the physical aspect is very tangible. I think if you decide that you truly want to get in better shape, you can do that. No one holds you back from that. I believe that, you just have to superimpose your will. Do you believe that's true as well for wealth?
Absolutely. It is based on your personal belief system that you have in place. So there's the precept, the thought before the thought enters your mind and becomes an idea, and then forms into a concept, and then forms into a theology, and then eventually becomes your philosophy, right? That is like the order of thoughts going from out there into your brain, going into the subconscious, and then you pondering on it, acting on these ideas, and then developing certain results that form your philosophy over the matters of creating wealth. So, yeah.
So the Apostle Paul said, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be renewed in your thinking, right? So that you can discern the will of God. I always find that verse so interesting, because this is Paul, a super spiritual man, and yet emphasizing the importance of the mind, We're cognitive human beings. So what I hear you saying is like, hey, there is this mindset that develops a theology. This theology develops a philosophy of life, which then, because we're cognitive human beings, we think, we feel, and we act. If those thoughts and those feelings and those actions are positive, we create good habits, and those habits create a good character. And therefore, our goals come to fruition. So what I hear you saying here is instead of having all this complexity of like, I need infinite banking, I need velocity banking, I need, the Financial Peace University, or any of these concepts that are mechanics, the first thing that needs to change is the mindset.
Yeah, and Jesus' first statement was, repent, for the kingdom of heaven has arrived, or the kingdom of heaven is at hand.
Change your mind.
So, yeah, repent. Take the religious definition that we've known as believers as repent. We think salvation. And I don't know if Jesus' first statement was trying to like get someone to convert and come join him right away. I would think, or maybe I'm wrong here, but repent does mean to change your current way of thinking.
Absolutely. Because
I am a king, Jesus Christ, and I come here to solve some problems that have been brewing up here for thousands of years. And I came to restore something that you had in the garden.
Right.
Right.
Right. I talk about that a lot, that the word repent means to change your mind, so that your current way of thinking and
can be transformed.
Right. To be transformed. Correct. And for that person that's sitting there going, yeah, this, in theory sounds great, but man, I'm marinated by all these.
Trust me, I'm the logical person. You tell me something like that, I'm like, okay, what do I do with that?
Yeah.
What's the tactical strategy?
Because let's look at the opposite of that, right?
Yeah.
In my realm, in the realm of fitness and nutrition, I can give the person all the dynamics, but if that person's mindset isn't right, nothing will happen.
Yeah.
I won't say any names, but I recently saw someone who came onto my program, and they didn't do well in the program, right? They didn't do well at all, which is rare because 8 out of 10 people that come through a program crush it and never gain the weight back and don't experience hunger and all these things. Yet this person really, really struggled. And he and I had some conversations, and I said, look, the mechanics are there, but you have to want it, and you have to actually do it, and you have to change your mind around it. And what was interesting about this particular person is that this person had just come into a lot of money in their business, and they were distracted. They were distracted by their social life. They were eating out. They were drinking the wine. They were doing all this stuff that comes with that, right? And I said, I think that's great. I said, but man, you have to come to the point where you get excited instead of going to the bar to drink wine and eat in these Sagat-rated restaurants, and you get excited about going to the gym and doing cardio and channeling your energy and your excitement because you're winning in business to wanting to be healthy. And we were never able to make that transition. I just saw him post something on Facebook yesterday where he was asking if someone could connect him to the new 10X coach. You know what I'm talking about? The
10X Health?
Yeah. What's his name?
Gary Brecka.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
Does anyone know him? And I'm like, you're going to go spend a big
You're going to spend way more money.
You're going to go spend a big chunk of money, and he's not going to tell you anything different.
Anything different than what you said.
If your mindset is not right, it doesn't matter what kind of dynamics you get. It doesn't matter if they work with you. I'm sure you've had people come to you, and you've laid everything out for them, and their mindset wasn't right, and it just didn't happen for them.
Didn't work.
Is that right?
Yeah, that happens more often than I personally would like. And so therefore I'm looking at myself, like, how do I improve? How do I improve? And so there's people watching this right now at home that if you're emotional, we've been driving the emotional conversation and you're getting it. The logical people that have been watching are like, right now, because we haven't been spending too much time on the logical, tactical stuff here, like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
That's for interview number 2.
Exactly. Right. And that's where you go on JT's channel or my channel as it relates to financing. You're going to see those case study type videos.
Right.
This is a conversation because this element is something you personally need as well in your household. You need someone to bounce these ideas off of, these conversations, to mold your current philosophy, your current mindset, and to challenge it and say, okay, do I need to change something here? Do I need to tweak something here, improve something here? And so when we're, discussing, we're combining the three pillars of faith and health, wealth, right? And combining these things all together, like what are the strategies that are going to work for you? And it's not going to be the same prescription every single time, but there are some principles. And for me, the what works, a principle that has worked for me is finding successful people that I can imitate. And I would use you as an example, especially in the health world, where I'm like, here's a guy, father, husband, kids, home, debt-free, got a business, multiple 7 figures, if I'm not mistaken, in his 40s, looks great, the hair is awesome. I'm like, this guy's polished.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that is the type of father I want to become. That is the type of man I want to be. I'm 27, you're 45. Okay, that is how I want to look at 45. That is how I want to think, behave, operate. I want to have all these different things. So therefore, the fastest way to get there is to figure out how to get within his ecosystem, within his foundation, within his environment.
Proximity.
Boom. Get within proximity of successful people.
Yeah.
And as he says, people, places, things, right? Removal of those things. As I'm doing that, then I'm saying, okay, next tactical strategy is I got to find someone to run with. So as it relates to the faith, I would put the relationships, I would put it under the topic of faith, right? For those that are like, I don't have faith. It's like, well, faith is relationships. So we can replace the word faith and put relationships. For me, that's my fiance, right? I got to figure out how to get her on board with the different things that we're doing together, right? And because she's my fiance, she's already agreed to get on board, right? And to run this race, run this marathon that we're going to do together. So I need accountability, right? Need some support here. So I think that's another tactical strategy, because if you find a partner, especially a spouse, you were mentioning that your wife is more financially inclined and you're more health.
Right.
So in a marriage, two become one. And if we're talking about how to achieve all three, I would say a very efficient way of doing that is to find someone that has an opposing strength that you're weak in. And for me, my fiance, my opposing strength, she's very academically inclined, smart, can comprehend things very, very quickly, and has the capacity to handle a lot of different methods coming into place, can handle my emotions when they do go berserk, because I'm the type of guy that doesn't display emotion.
Yeah.
Where the hell did that come from?
Where did he come?
What the heck? This guy's so calm, and then he busts. So now, not aggressively, but emotionally, that might look like me breaking down behind closed doors off camera when I'm stressing out, crying. And then the person that I'm close to is like, where did that come from? I've been waiting. You didn't cry when it comes to certain situations when you should cry, and then now you're crying.
Yeah.
What? So she's being able to handle that. So those of you that are at home, find that accountability partner, get within proximity of successful people in the area that you want to grow in. And then also do a little self-discovery and give yourself some credit to find out, what are you actually good at? Stop chasing money, stop chasing things and materials. Just ask yourself, what am I actually naturally like good at? If I touch it, or if I operate in it, like I get it done quicker than most.
Yeah.
That's going to be in one of those three areas: faith, health, or wealth. If you're good at working out, or you're good at naturally just eating better than most, and you just have a good sense of health, might want to fortify that position, because it's going to build the confidence to now step into the faith realm of building healthy relationships, and step into the wealth realm of building healthy, wealthy systems.
Yeah,
and it's going to be, building that confidence. So that's like 10 minutes of tactical right there for those that are like, where's the tactic? Where's the strategy? I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure I throw it in there for you guys. And the emotional people are like fired up, because like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So
No, that's really good. I heard a conversation between Dave Ramsey and Alex Hormozy, and they were talking about how he made the decision to go all in on business came from the idea that Ramsey was talking about, he was talking to another guy who had done really well, had a really large portfolio, and it was split between an 80-20. 20 of it was wealth management and 80% of it was in real estate. And he simply said, you got to go all in on real estate, and because that's what you're good at, and that's where you're going to thrive. And so we have to find those blessings, those talents, and we have to double down on those things that we're passionate about so that we can chase impact and not money. And I think that as a byproduct of that, things go well. And that's been kind of my story. I could have gone off and done many other things that in the short term would have made a lot of money, but ultimately it wouldn't have the same impact that and legacy that what I do now and what I'm passionate about has done for me. So I think all these things are great. I love how you brought the relationship component into it as well. I think that someone said early on in my marriage, marriage is not there to make you happy, it's there to make you whole. And at the time, that didn't sit very well with me, because we all have this idea that marriage is supposed to make us all happy and jolly and happily ever after. But the truth is that God has instituted marriage for a very specific reason, and he's brought two worlds together that generally without God would collide, but yet in God, as the adhesive, he balances those things out, right? And he brings the rational with the emotional, right, together so that you can be whole. My wife and I are night and day. We're radically different and yet perfect for each other.
Same with my fiance right now.
That's all God's doing, right? Because, it's interesting how these things work out. And so I think once you are truly aligned with God, God gives you the wisdom to understand, okay, how do I live an abundant life financially? How can I live an abundant life physically? How can I live, how can I have great relationships? And this balance comes through that original relationship, right, with God, which goes back to everything we've been talking about. Repentance means, change your mind, your mind, transform your thinking. And isn't it interesting that when it comes to wealth, when it comes to health, that's exactly where people need to start, right? We need to know where we are, and then we need to kind of change those perspectives, those stories. And as you said with Patrick's book, really be able to pinpoint who our enemy is, and from there, we can truly understand ourselves and produce amazing results.
Absolutely. Also, just here's an unfair advantage for those at home that are watching this, that are of the faith. You're a man or woman of God. Remember, there's a bunch of other faithful men and women out there that want to collaborate, help, and serve. And we have been ordained and charged with being a faithful giver. So I have been in so many scenarios, JT, where people have given me thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars of value, and tens of thousands of dollars of say money, but more so the value part, the wisdom of other men and women of God that have entered into my life and poured into me. We're talking about, me being in a race where the race has already started before I was born, right? If I'm going into a cultural thing now where there's a race going on, and before you're even born, you're already in last, and then by the time you get to 18, you're already being lapped 400 times, right? And to have someone else in the race that's willing to take a step back, look back, hold your hand, put you in the cart, and just add the boosters and take you to a whole new level. So remember that as believers, many of us are going to church, but we're not actually present in church. Many of us are going to Bible studies, but we're not actually studying with a person. We're just going to the meeting just to say that we went. We're just, putting money in the box just to say that we went. Or nowadays, swiping your credit card and subscription online, just saying, yeah, I did my godly thing. And it's like, I don't think you did nearly half of what you should be doing, and actually networking with someone at the church, getting with the pastor, getting with the leadership team, and seeing how you can be poured into and accelerate in your race and catch up in no time. And that's literally what I've been doing. I'm 27 years old now. I'm turning 28 in the new year. And I'm like, there's people like JT, there's people like my fiance, there's people like my business partners like Alex, Sebastian, and people like Carmen and Darius and Wealth Nation, where I'm like, if I didn't have these people,
Yeah.
like, I'd be struggling too.
For sure.
So those of you that are watching at home, you're like, you're alone and you're struggling. That's another tactical strategy, is go put yourself out there and find some people that you can grow with and get within proximity, because these people want to help you.
Man, proximity is power.
crazy.
Proximity is power. And I believe that more so than a lot of these marketing masterminds, which are, I'm not against those things, but I'm simply saying that, you know, you have people in your circle of influence, whether you know it or not, maybe you just haven't recognized it, that have the knowledge, the experience, that if you get close enough to those people, that starts to rub off on you. And I truly, truly believe that that's the way to excel. I don't come from a wealthy background. And so, you know, to think today that I am debt free is unthinkable. And yet that's happened based on mentorships, discipleships, and proximity. And the same is true for you guys. So I think this conversation has been very edifying for me. And I'm just very thankful to God that I've had the opportunity to meet this guy and talk like this, because I saw him one time over a camera. He sort of virtually mentored me. And now I get to sit with him. We get to chat about these things. And so I hope you guys have enjoyed this. You know, as I usually say towards the end of my videos, I hope you put these things to action, because if we've sat here for an hour, you've heard some great things, you've resonated with some of these things, but you don't put it into action. We did nothing. So don't do that to yourself. Make sure you definitely apply it. Denzel, some last words for people watching, people that once again are like, man, okay, this all sounds good, but just give them one nice, tangible thing that they can do right now that can get them started, that can move them in the right direction.
I like to wrap up by saying, I encourage you to rediscover your kingdom authority here on this planet. For those of you that are female, rediscover your kingdom authority as a queen, right? That is one of the most confident things that I've been told, that you have the ability, you have the right, you have the royalty, you have the jurisdiction to be and govern as a king, as a queen over your environment. That's one of the most powerful things that I got told to me through a camera, through a video, through someone I never had the pleasure of meeting in person, right? And that was all I needed, was someone to tell me that you can be a king, you can be a queen over your life circumstances, over your situations. That is a recipe for dominion, which the recipe for dominion is to be fruitful, multiply, replenish, subdue, and you will have dominion. In summary, it's a be, do, have attitude. So any area you want to grow in, you need to be the thing, you need to do the do's and don't the don'ts, and you will have the results, the positive results that yield from that.
That's so good.
And I'll leave you with that.
That's so good. That's so good. And that's how we ended our webinar last Friday, our internal webinar with our members. And I said, you know, once you change your story and you embody the ultimate story, which is that we are sons and daughters of the Most High God, then the question is, what is not within your grasp? And I think truly that health, wealth, relationships, fulfillment, and an abundant life is available to us on this side of eternity. And it all starts with changing our mind. And so, guys, I hope you've enjoyed it. JT here interviewing Denzel Rodriguez, the finance geek. And if you guys want to follow him, where can they follow you?
You can Google me, Denzel Rodriguez. You can find me on YouTube, Denzel Rodriguez, everywhere. Denzel Rodriguez, you'll find me. The guy with the curly hair and the beard. And you'll hear me in all my videos. You gotta know your numbers, gotta know your numbers, gotta know your numbers.
Yeah.
That's with faith. There's numbers in faith, there's numbers in health, there's numbers in wealth. Gotta know them.
Awesome. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. JT with the Empty Your Bucket Nutrition Plan. We'll talk to you guys soon. Ciao, ciao.